Hello, I'm David Dawson. I'm Director of the Wiltshire Museum here in Devizes. I'm going to talk to you about some of the ideas that we've been working on with the Assize Court Trust for making the Assize Court the new home for the Wiltshire Museum. These slides are the display boards that were displayed at the back of the Assize Court at the weekend, and we had over 175 people come and visit, including Dr. Phil Harding, you may see in the photo, who is one of the patrons of the museum. And we really want to hear what you have to say and what you think. Just to give a brief sort of bit of background, the Assize Court was built in 1835, and you can see here some images of what it used to look like, as well as a rather sad one of what it looks like now. It's been empty for over 30 years. Inside, it's in rather poor condition. The image on the centre, in the centre on the left, shows the coffered roof of the entrance hall with the wonderful roof lights. Unfortunately, you can see this is in a real state, and that's actually collapsing and propped up by scaffolding. It's one of the reasons the building isn't safe to enter. On the right hand side, this is one of the courtroom buildings, and you can see that the wooden panelling has gone, so have the furnishings, even the floorboards have disappeared, so there's just sort of earth left on the floor. So it really is in a very poor state. In terms of the way the building is today, its plan, as you come in through the four columns, you come into an entrance hall. To the north is a grand jury room, single-storey space. And then you can follow through into the Crown Court. This was double height space, and this was where a judge from London would have tried important cases. That's the Assize Court, after which it's named. Down here is what was the records room and caretaker's flat, and became eventually the town's police station. And then behind that is the Nisi Prior's Court, the magistrates' court, which was for lesser offences. There was judges' rooms and rooms for lawyers in this area, but those have now gone, they've disappeared. And then in the basement, below the Assize Court in this part, this was where the cells were. So prisoners would be brought from the prison up by Prison Bridge, led down and placed in the cells, awaiting their trial. And then they'd be taken up these stairs and popped up in the dock in the centre of the court. The museum, we have nationally important collections telling the story of Wiltshire and the story of Devizes. We are an independent charity. We get £12,500 from Wiltshire Council and £4,000 from Devizes Town Council each year, for which we're very grateful, but that's less than a penny per person across Wiltshire, and that contrasts slightly with the £1 each of us pays towards keeping the British Museum running. Just gives you a bit of an indication. We have visitors from across the world. Many of our visitors come specifically to Devizes to see the museum, and we've calculated using a standard methodology that we are worth £750,000 to the local economy as visitors to the museum stay in hotels and bed and breakfasts, go to pubs and cafes and do their shopping. So we are rather more important to the local economy than you may think. We are thinking about some of the aims of what we want to do with the building and the exhibition, and this is where we really need to hear what you think as well. Now, the two most important aims for me are that we should be friendly, open and welcoming. The museum over 95% of our visitors already say we're very welcoming. We want that to continue. That's thanks to our wonderful team of volunteers. And the other thing is we want to make sure that the building has a level of public access so that everybody can come into the building and sort of experience it and understand how the building worked. And I'll say a little more about that later. And then we're thinking of themes and topics for what the displays of the museum part of the building should cover. And again, we're asking for your views on this. So we're thinking of themes like the story of the land, prehistory and archaeology, the story of Devizes and Wiltshire, and the story of the Assize Court itself, which of course is important. The aim is to create this as a new home for the Wiltshire Museum, but currently we're on Long Street in 5 buildings that are knocked together, 25 floor levels, and it's not really a building that's fit for purpose. We want to improve the facilities we can offer our visitors and to be a hub for the community. And also, we're very well aware that the Assize Court fits into wider plans to regenerate, in particular, the wharf area of Devizes that's being led by Wiltshire Council. And we're talking to the Council and Wadworths also about how we can work together in the future. The Assize Court Trust appointed a firm of architects called Purcell, based in Bristol, a fantastic amount of experience in developing museums and historic buildings. And they've come up with 4 key initial options of how the building might be used. And one of the things to decide is how much we need more space to make the building work for the museum, is how much space we can have, how much space should be in the new extension at the back, or whether we can put new floors into some of the existing historic spaces. And this is something we're asking your views about. But we're sort of ending up with a favoured emerging option for what we think might work for the museum and as a community space. So just to run through this, the main diagram at the top, the main plan at the top, shows you the ground floor. There'll be just 3 floors in the whole of the building, so level access right the way throughout with a ramp at the front and at the back. And as you come in through between the columns and into the main entrance space, to your left would be the learning space. So this would be where children would come, schools would come to find out about the story of Wiltshire and the Assize Court. Behind it, the green area, this is the event space. We would use it as a lecture room, seating 140 people. But also it would be for many different uses. It could be cleared of seating, perhaps, to be used for events. You can imagine tables with dinners at the museum, and all sorts of other things as well. Then as we come down to the entrance hall, you see we follow through into the cafe that leads out over to a view out over the canal. And the cafe opens out to a public space behind the building. Now it's this area, this whole central core, that could very easily be open to everyone. So anybody, whenever they feel like it, can walk through the building to the cafe and out and explore the canal. And then the blue area, this is the suggested main area for the museum displays. And we can see how a route through that would enable us to tell the story of Wiltshire and Devizes. Then if we move to the diagram, the bottom left, the space here, which is in the upper of these, is in a new floor placed in the former Magistrates Court, that would be space for offices. And then immediately alongside it, a secondary sort of event space for exhibitions, smaller exhibitions perhaps. And then also in the blue area, that would be our special exhibition gallery. That would be for touring exhibitions and particularly for objects that we might borrow from the national museums that relate to the story of Wiltshire in our local area. And then behind it, this sort of orangey colour, looking out over the canal, this would be our library and research space with desks looking out over the library for academic research, which is so important to the museum. Then if we turn to the basements, to the ground, we have a new area for storing the collections, including visible storage, places where people could come and explore the collections. Then alongside it, the main loos. There would be a level access loo on the ground floor as well, of course. And then the cells, some of them would be restored. I mean, this opens up the wonderful opportunity to be able to bring people and school children down from the learning centre through a new stair down into the cells, so that people could see how Victorian prisoners were treated while awaiting their trial, and then be brought up the stairs into the centre of the Assize Court, perhaps in a reconstructed dock, so they could see how it would have felt to be catapulted into this public space, stared out by the public behind them, and being confronted by the judge in his scarlet robes and wig and all the finery. The whole idea of the design of the court was to terrify the prisoners and to get them to confess to their crimes. So those are the basic ideas that we're working on at the moment, and we really want to hear what you think. Now, the obvious question is, when can all this happen? We are working on these initial ideas for the building, and we hope to be able to submit an initial expression of interest to the National Lottery Fund, National Heritage Lottery Fund next year. They don't reopen their programs until then. And then from then, if all goes well, it's a 4 or 5 year program before we will be able to raise the funding to be able to do the project. And we will need a huge amount of community support in order to be able to do that. Then once the money's in place, then it's probably 2, 3, 4 years to do the project. So this is a long-term project, but what is absolutely essential is that you tell us what you think, and we will be we're hoping to be able to count on your support as we develop the project. And there'll be many other opportunities to be able to tell us what you think and to be able to get involved as we continue to work on the project. Thank you.